You're not exactly looking like you belong here, Mason teased, walking up to her with his surfboard tucked under his arm. Rachel rolled her eyes, adjusting her sunglasses. Well, I'm not sure I'm built for all this sand and salt water, and waves that could probably swallow me whole. Mason laughed, tossing his board down. It's all good. You're just a city girl trapped in a beach bum's world. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Trapped? Seems like you're the one who's stuck out here. Mason grinned, his eyes sparkling. Stuck? No way. This is freedom, Rachel. No schedules, no traffic, no noise. Just the ocean and the sun. Rachel looked at him, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Sounds nice, but I can't imagine living like that. Mason's expression softened. You'd be surprised. There's something about the ocean that teaches you to let go, you know? Let go of all the little things that don't matter. Rachel tilted her head, intrigued despite herself. Let go, huh? How do you even start doing that? Mason shrugged, walking back toward the water. You just have to dive in, literally. Sometimes you need to take a risk, not just overthink everything. You learn how to trust the waves, even when you're not sure if you'll stay afloat. Rachel hesitated, watching him. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Mason turned to face her, his gaze earnest now. You don't need to be. You just need to start. Trust me, the ocean's a lot more forgiving than it seems. Maybe one day, she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Mason grinned. No rush. But hey, if you change your mind, I'll be here. Rachel stood a few steps away, her toes curling into the cool sand. She had tried to enjoy the sunset, but her mind kept wandering back to her life in the city's scheduled brunches, work meetings, the noise. She glanced at Mason, still relaxed, as if time didn't exist for him. It was foreign, this sense of calm, yet strangely inviting. You really do just lie around here all day, huh? She asked, a teasing edge in her voice. Mason chuckled, not opening his eyes. Not all day. But yeah, a lot of it. Nothing beats the feeling of the ocean breeze and the sun on your face. You should try it sometime. Rachel rolled her eyes. I'm not exactly built for doing nothing. I have responsibilities. Mason's voice was playful, but there was a depth to it as he said, You're allowed to take a break from responsibility, you know. The world will keep spinning without you for a little while. Rachel's lips quirked into a half smile. I don't know. I'm so used to being busy. Sometimes I feel like if I don't stay on top of everything, something will fall apart. Mason pushed himself up from the sand, dusting off the grit from his shorts. His eyes softened with understanding. I get that. But here's the thing, if you're always thinking about what could go wrong, you miss out on what's happening right now. Like, this moment, the ocean, the sunset, or even just talking to someone who's not stressing about a meeting tomorrow. She looked at him, considering his words. For a brief moment, his carefree attitude didn't seem like a facade, it seemed like something real, something attainable. And for the first time that weekend, Rachel wondered if maybe she was the one missing out. I think I could use a little less stress, she admitted, her voice quieter than before. Mason grinned. You've got time. You just have to let go of it, little by little. He stood up, brushing off the sand from his hands. Come on. I'll teach you how to surf. What do you say? Rachel blinked, caught off guard by the sudden invitation. Surf? You mean you want me to get on a board and ride a wave? Mason's grin widened. It's not as scary as it sounds. I'll be right there with you. You'll be surprised at how quickly you pick it up. Rachel laughed, the sound light and genuine. I don't know if I trust you on this one. Mason winked. Trust me, I'm a pro. And hey, if you wipe out, you've got the ocean to cushion your fall. Rachel hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let go quite that much. But Mason's confidence, his easy smile, and the sense of freedom that seemed to hang in the air around him were tempting. There was something about being here, so far from her structured world, that made her think maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't hurt to try. All right, fine, she said with a playful roll of her eyes. But if I drown, I'm blaming you. Mason laughed and grabbed his board. Deal. But I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. The waves rolled gently against the shore, their rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat, urging her to take the plunge. And maybe just for tonight, that was all she needed to do. The cool water lapped at their ankles as Mason waded further in, his board in hand. Rachel hesitated at the edge of the water, her feet sinking into the soft sand beneath the surface. The ocean stretched out before her, vast and unknowable. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so small, so unprepared. Mason turned, noticing her reluctance, and flashed a reassuring grin. It's not as scary as it looks. I promise. Rachel hesitated for a moment longer before stepping into the water, the chill biting at her legs. She took a deep breath, trying to push away the nerves building in her stomach. She had always been in control, always been the one to figure things out. But here, with Mason, it felt different. It felt like there was room to breathe, room to let go. Mason walked up beside her, his voice low. "All right, here's the deal. Get on the board, lie flat, and I'll help you get the feel of it first. No pressure." Rachel looked at the board, unsure. "Are you sure this won't end in disaster?" Mason chuckled, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Only one way to find out, right?" Taking a deep breath, Rachel climbed onto the board, positioning herself awkwardly in the water. It felt strange, the board rocking beneath her as the gentle waves nudged them forward. Mason, knee-deep in the water next to her, positioned his own board with ease. "Okay, now just try to stay calm. I'm going to push us a little, and when I say go, you just paddle to catch the wave. I'll guide you through it." Rachel nodded, focusing on her breathing, trying to relax. She had no idea what she was doing, but there was something about Mason's quiet confidence that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could do this too. "Here comes a small one," Mason said, eyes scanning the horizon. "Ready?" Before she could answer, the wave reached them, and Mason gave her board a small push. She paddled instinctively, though her movements felt clumsy and unsure. "Go! Now!" Mason's voice was sharp but encouraging. Rachel's heart raced as she tried to keep her balance, paddling harder to catch the wave. Her body tilted, her arms straining to keep the board steady, and for a split second, she was really moving. Her mind went blank, and she forgot about the uncertainty, the city, the endless to-do lists. For a fleeting moment, she was just part of the ocean. But then the wave tilted too far, and she tumbled off, splashing into the cool water below. She surfaced, sputtering, and immediately burst into laughter. "Well, that was something," she called out, her voice filled with surprise. Mason was already paddling over to her, his grin wide. "See, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Rachel wiped the water from her face, laughing harder. "I was so sure I was going to wipe out. But I felt something. I don't know, like I was almost there." Mason's eyes softened. "You were. It takes time. But you're starting to get it." "Okay," Rachel said, grinning. "Let's do it again. This time, I'm going to stay on the board." Mason laughed, paddling back toward her. "That's the spirit. Let's make it happen." As they rode more waves together, Mason guiding her with patience and laughter, Rachel started to feel the ocean in a new way. It was unpredictable, wild, and beautiful, just like him. And for once, it didn't feel like something she needed to control. Hours passed before they finally called it a night. The moon was high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the ocean. They waded back to shore, tired but exhilarated, the salt water clinging to their skin. Mason flopped onto the sand, stretching out as if he hadn't a care in the world. Rachel sat beside him, still feeling the rush of the waves in her chest. "I can't believe I did it," she said, her voice a mix of disbelief and pride. Mason shot her a playful glance. "Told you. You're a natural. You just had to trust the wave." Rachel laughed, looking out at the ocean. I think I'm starting to get it. Maybe not all of it, but a little bit." Mason grinned, resting on his elbows, looking out at the horizon. "It's all a process. But you're on your way." Rachel leaned back, the sand cool beneath her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt content. No deadlines. No schedules. Just the ocean, the stars, and the quiet hum of the world around her. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let go if only for a little while. "I had no idea volleyball could be so fun," Rachel admitted with a grin, wiping sand off her hands. Mason chuckled. "Yeah, it's one of those things you don't think you'll enjoy until you actually try it. It's the kind of thing I do when I need to get out of my head. You should play more often." Rachel thought about it for a moment, still unsure of her ability to fully embrace this laid-back lifestyle. "Maybe. But I don't think I could just leave everything behind and live like you do." Mason's expression softened, and he glanced at her, his eyes thoughtful. "I get it. Not everyone can just drop everything. But sometimes you have to step back and ask yourself, what are you really working for? The grind, the stress. Does it actually make you happy?" Rachel paused. The question lingered in her mind as they strolled along the shoreline. Mason's carefree demeanor, the way he could be present in the moment without overthinking everything, was something she admired. She couldn't remember the last time she'd truly felt this way light, without the burden of always thinking about the next task. I've spent years building my career, she began slowly, her voice tinged with doubt. But now it feels like I'm always chasing something that never quite satisfies. I'm not even sure why I'm doing it anymore. It's like I'm stuck on a treadmill, running faster, but not really going anywhere. Mason nodded in understanding. I get it. I used to be like that too, caught up in the race. But eventually, I realized life isn't about constantly running. It's about finding the things that make you feel alive. Rachel looked out at the ocean, her thoughts tangled with his words. Could she really make a change? Could she step away from the constant hustle, the pressure of her career, and live a life more like Masoness? So, what's your secret? She asked, her curiosity piqued. How do you just let go? Mason shrugged with a carefree smile. It's not easy. I've been lucky in a lot of ways, but I've also learned to follow my gut. Sometimes you just have to trust that you'll figure it out along the way. And if you're enjoying the journey, even better. No one has it all figured out, Rachel. We're all just trying to make sense of it. One afternoon, as they sat on the edge of the beach watching the sunset, Mason nudged her gently. You've been quieter than usual today. Something on your mind? Rachel sighed, her gaze fixed on the horizon, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this, all of you, really. I mean, I see how you live. I see how you just enjoy life, and it feels like something I've forgotten how to do. Every part of me has been so focused on work, and now I'm wondering if it's all worth it. Mason's voice softened, his usual playful tone replaced with something more serious. You don't have to have it all figured out, Rachel. Life isn't a formula. You don't need to measure your worth by your career or your achievements. Maybe it's about learning how to let go, to live in the moment. It's about balance, not extremes. Rachel turned to look at him, her heart beating a little faster. But how do you do it? How do you trust that everything will fall into place if you stop worrying all the time? Mason smiled gently, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet understanding. I think it's about trusting yourself first. Trusting that no matter what happens, you can handle it. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Rachel felt a pang in her chest, both a sense of relief and fear. Could she really trust herself like that? Could she let go of the constant pressure, the fear of failure? The life she'd built in the city was all she'd ever known, but she was starting to feel like it might not be the life she wanted forever. What about you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever worry about the future? Mason let out a small laugh, shaking his head. Of course I do, but I don't let it control me. I used to get caught up in planning every detail, in fearing what would happen if things didn't go according to plan. But I learned that life has its own way of unfolding. You can't control it all. Rachel was silent for a moment, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. She wanted to believe him, to believe that life could be lived without constantly chasing the next achievement. But it felt like a leap she wasn't sure she was ready to take. I'm just so afraid of losing everything I've worked for, she admitted, her voice barely audible. What if I make a mistake and everything falls apart? Mason reached over, gently taking her hand in his, offering comfort without saying a word. His touch was warm, grounding her in the present moment. You won't lose anything that truly matters, he said softly. And if you do stumble, it's okay. We all do. Life's about growing, not staying in the same place forever. Rachel squeezed his hand, grateful for his presence but still unsure. The world she had built felt so safe and secure, even if it was suffocating at times. Could she really take a risk and embrace the uncertainty of a life like Mason's? The night fell, stars twinkling in the sky above them, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Rachel allowed herself to stop thinking, to simply be. In Mason's company, she felt a kind of peace she hadn't known she was missing. The next day, Mason invited her to join him for a hike through the nearby hills. It's not far, he promised. Just a little walk to clear your head. Rachel hesitated. A part of her wanted to stay in her comfort zone, to keep things simple. But another part, the part that was slowly starting to listen to Mason's advice, urged her to step outside her routine. All right, she said, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Let's do it. The call from her boss had been a sharp jolt back to reality. There was an urgent crisis at the office, one that couldn't be ignored. Rachel's heart sank as she looked at Mason, who was sitting across from her, his eyes filled with concern. Mason, she started, her voice wavering slightly. I don't know what to do. I've been here for weeks, and it feels like I've found something real. But now I have to go back, and I'm afraid I'll lose it all. What if I go back and it all slips away? What if I can't have both? Mason leaned forward, his expression softening. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I can't tell you what's going to happen, Rachel. But what I can say is that sometimes you have to take a leap. Life isn't always about having everything figured out. Sometimes it's about trusting that things will fall into place, even if it means leaving the safety of what you know. Rachel looked down at their intertwined hands, feeling the weight of his words. She had always played it safe, always calculated every step. But now, sitting here with Mason, she realized that maybe the safest option wasn't always the best. But I've built so much in the city, she admitted, her voice low. I'm scared of giving it all up. What if I'm making a huge mistake? Mason's thumb gently traced the back of her hand, his voice steady and reassuring. It's not about giving it all up. It's about choosing what's worth it. You can keep your career and your city life, but sometimes you have to decide what's worth fighting for. And if it's this, he gestured to the open beach, the sun beginning to dip below the horizon. If it's this connection, this peace, this feeling, maybe it's worth risking it all. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. She wanted so badly to believe him, to believe that it could be that simple. But reality wasn't always that kind. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that, she whispered, the fear creeping in once more. Mason stood up and walked over to the window, his back to her as he stared out at the sea. You don't have to be strong right now, Rachel. You just have to trust yourself. And me. If you leave, I'll still be here. I'm not going anywhere. Her breath caught in her throat. The vulnerability in his words hit her like a wave, crashing through the walls she had built around herself. He wasn't asking her to choose, he was giving her the space to figure it out. The silence between them felt heavy, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of silence that allowed space for contemplation, for decisions to be made. Rachel felt the weight of her choices, the pull of the city and the warmth of the beach, the life she had built and the one she was just beginning to explore. Slowly, she stood up, walking toward him. She stood next to him at the window, both of them watching the last sliver of sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Maybe you're right, she said softly. Maybe it's not about having everything perfect. Maybe it's about seeing where this could take us, seeing where I could take myself. Mason smiled, turning to face her. Whatever you decide, Rachel, I'm in it with you. We'll figure it out together. Mason had given her the space to think, never pushing her but always present when she needed him. He took her on walks along the shoreline, teaching her to slow down and appreciate the little moments, the feel of the sand between her toes, the way the light shimmered across the water at dusk, and how it all seemed to put life into perspective. One evening, as the sky turned a brilliant shade of violet, Rachel sat beside him on the porch of her beach house, feeling the familiar warmth of the setting sun. She glanced over at him, finding comfort in his steady presence. I've been thinking, she began, her voice soft but determined, about everything you said. About taking a leap. Mason smiled, his eyes warm. And, I think I've been so afraid of losing control, she admitted. I've spent my whole life managing everything, making sure nothing goes wrong. But maybe that's what's been holding me back. Maybe it's time to stop controlling everything and just let go. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Let go. Not in a reckless way, she clarified quickly, a laugh escaping her lips. But in a way that feels right. Maybe I don't have to choose between the city and the beach. Maybe I can have both, just in different ways. Mason nodded thoughtfully, taking in her words. It sounds like you're starting to trust yourself more. That's a big step. Rachel let the silence stretch between them, her mind racing with possibilities. What if I could take on some remote projects, keep my job, but also come back here when I need to? She mused, almost to herself. What if I could find a balance that works? Mason reached over and gently squeezed her hand, offering her the reassurance she needed. I think that sounds perfect. It's not about abandoning one life for another, it's about making space for both. Rachel smiled, feeling a sense of clarity she hadn't known in weeks. Maybe it was possible to live a life that was fulfilling on both fronts. One foot in the city, and one foot here, where the waves met the shore and the air was filled with the scent of salt water. Maybe I'll give it a shot, she said finally, her voice filled with a newfound conviction. The decision brought a wave of relief, but it was also a reminder of how much courage it took to take that first step. It wasn't going to be easy, there would be challenges ahead, no doubt. But for the first time, Rachel didn't feel like she was making a choice out of fear. She was choosing to be true to herself, to the life she was building, and to the connection she had found with Mason. Over the next few days, Rachel began to make plans for her new balance. She spoke with her boss about the possibility of remote work, and to her surprise, they were supportive of the idea. The city didn't feel so far away anymore. It felt like something she could navigate without losing herself in it. One evening, after a long day of work, Rachel stood on the beach, watching the stars begin to emerge in the sky. Mason stood beside her, his presence grounding, steady. "I'm really glad you're here," Rachel said quietly, looking up at the vast, endless sky. "It feels like everything's falling into place." Mason smiled, a contented, almost serene expression on his face. "Me too, Rachel. Me too." As the waves continued to crash against the shore, Rachel realized that she wasn't leaving behind anything. She wasn't giving up the life she had worked so hard to build. She was expanding it, finding a way to blend both worlds, and embracing the unknown with someone who was ready to face it by her side. And in that moment, as she stood with Mason, the future didn't seem so daunting anymore. It was a journey that they would take together, one step at a time. Mason's carefree nature had initially been one of the things she admired about him. He was spontaneous, funny, and lived in the moment. But now, it felt like that same freedom was suffocating her, making her feel like she was constantly being pulled between two worlds. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were too different. The idea of a life with Mason, no deadlines, no responsibilities, just endless days of adventure had once seemed appealing. But now it felt like a fantasy, a dream that was too far removed from reality. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was Mason again. She hesitated, then opened the message. "I know things have been tense lately, but I want to make this work. I'm sorry for not understanding what you need. Can we talk?" Her heart softened, but the nagging feeling of doubt still lingered. She wasn't sure if she could keep trying to bridge the gap between their worlds. But maybe, just maybe, they needed space to figure things out. She typed a response, her fingers trembling slightly as she wrote. "I think we need a break, Mason. I need to focus on my life here, and you need to focus on your own. Maybe we're not meant to be together right now." She hit send, her chest tightening as she stared at the screen. She hadn't expected the words to feel so final, but they did. There was no turning back now. Days passed, and the city continued its relentless buzz, but Rachel couldn't shake the sense of loss. She threw herself into her work, her friends, and the familiar routines that had once grounded her. Yet, every so often, her mind would wander back to Mason. She wondered if he was okay, if he missed her as much as she missed him. And then, one afternoon, she got a message from him. It was a picture of a small beach by his hometown. The caption read, "I went back to the place where I first fell in love with the idea of us. And I realized something, maybe I've been holding on to the wrong version of us." Her heart clenched. What was he trying to say? Rachel sat with the thought for a long time, the quiet hum of the city outside her window fading into the background. Maybe there was still a chance for them, if they were both willing to grow and change. But could they? Could she embrace the carefree moments of life Mason offered while still holding on to the stability she craved? Rachel didn't know, but she was beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, they were both on a journey to figure that out. And perhaps that was okay. Mason noticed the quiet change in her. "You seem different," he remarked softly, his voice tinged with curiosity. "I can tell you're thinking about something important." Rachel smiled, her eyes meeting his. "I think I am. I've been thinking about how much I've missed you, and how much of myself I was missing too. I was so focused on running away from the world, but I forgot that I could create a life that blends both sides, my need for peace and my desire for something more." Mason's eyes softened. "I understand now. I've been so caught up in my own world of ambition, structure, and plans. I thought they were the only things that mattered, but I've started to see what you've always seen. There's value in slowing down, in finding balance." Rachel leaned into him, her heart beating faster. "We don't have to give up what we love. We can build a life that includes both our worlds. Maybe it's not about choosing one or the other." Mason nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. I've been so focused on my goals that I didn't realize how much I've missed the freedom to just be. Maybe the best life is one where we get to have both ambition, yes, but also the freedom to enjoy the simple moments." They sat there in silence for a moment, each reflecting on the shifts in their hearts. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the beach. It felt like a new beginning, not just for their relationship, but for them as individuals, too. Mason took Rachel's hand in his, their fingers intertwining naturally, as if they were always meant to fit together. Let's make a promise, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We won't let the world pull us in separate directions. We'll find a way to make it work, to be the best versions of ourselves together. Rachel squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with hope. I promise. We'll create a life where we both grow and still have what matters most. With the sound of the ocean as their backdrop, they shared a tender kiss, a kiss that spoke of new beginnings, shared dreams, and the possibility of a future built on understanding and compromise. So, Mason said, breaking the comfortable silence, we've talked about both our worlds, but how do you see it working long term? Rachel smiled, her heart swelling. It wasn't just a question, it was an invitation. An invitation to plan, to dream, to build something together. I think it's about compromise, she said thoughtfully. I've always wanted to be in the city, but there's something about the rhythm of the beach that makes me feel alive in a different way. Maybe it's the balance we can create, you know? We don't have to choose one over the other. We could split our time between both places, have the best of both worlds. Mason nodded, squeezing her hand. I love that idea. I've always felt like something was missing in the city, but when we're here, I feel like I'm in the right place. I think we could figure out a way to make it work. The sun dipped lower, casting a warm golden glow over the beach. Rachel could see the future unfolding before them, one that blended their passions, their dreams, and their commitment to each other. I think we should find a place here, Rachel continued. Maybe not a full-time house, but a small place we can retreat to whenever we need a break from everything else. Mason grinned, his eyes sparkling with excitement. A little beach house? I'm in. I can already picture us spending weekends here, waking up to the sound of the ocean, and working during the week back in the city. We could have the best of both worlds. Rachel's heart fluttered. This was what she wanted. Not just the beach or the city, but this building a life with Mason that allowed them to have everything they loved, with the freedom to move between it all. I love you, Mason, Rachel whispered, as they continued walking along the shoreline, their footprints merging in the sand. I love you too, Rachel. We'll make this work. Together, we'll create our perfect balance. And as the sun sank below the horizon, the promise of their shared future felt more real than ever. As the evening sky deepened into shades of purple and orange, Rachel and Mason continued their walk along the beach, the sound of the surf and the soft whisper of the wind filling the space between them. There was a quiet understanding between them, now an unspoken connection that bridged their two worlds, making them feel more in sync than ever. I can already see it, Mason said, his voice low and steady, as if speaking a vision into existence. The beach house, with a big porch overlooking the water. We could have our morning coffee out there, watch the sunrise. Maybe even have a little garden, some flowers, a few vegetables. We'd make it our own. Rachel smiled, her heart light. The vision he painted with his words was perfect, exactly the kind of life she'd dreamed of without even realizing it. A life that wasn't just about the beach or the city, but about them, building something together that reflected both of their passions. Yeah, she said, her voice filled with excitement. And then during the week, we'd be back in the city, working, but knowing we have this place to come back to. It'll be our sanctuary, a place to recharge. Mason chuckled, glancing over at her. You know, I never thought I'd be someone who would want to live part-time by the beach. I always thought the hustle of the city was where I belonged, but now, this feels right. You make it feel right. Rachel squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with gratitude. I feel the same way. You've shown me how important it is to have a balance. It's not about choosing one over the other, it's about blending the best of both. They stopped walking, standing still for a moment, watching as the last traces of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon. The world around them seemed to slow down, and for a second, it felt like they were the only two people in it. Everything was perfect. So, what's next for us? Rachel asked, turning to face him, her eyes full of curiosity and hope. Mason smiled, a little mischievous glint in his eyes. Well, first things first, we start looking for that beach house. But after that, I think we take it one step at a time. We'll figure out how to make our lives work, both here and in the city. And we'll do it together. Rachel laughed softly, leaning into him as he wrapped his arm around her. I think that sounds like the perfect plan. Whatever challenges come, we'll face them together. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore, the cool breeze, and the warmth of Mason beside her felt like a promise. No matter what the future held, they had each other. And together, they could make anything work.